The sky above Kethara burned with orange fire. Commander Yella pressed her thin hands against the crystal window of the orbital defense station and watched her world die. Below her, the beautiful cities of her people cracked and fell like broken glass. The singing towers that had stood for 1,000 years now lay silent in the dust. The Korthak ships moved slowly across the sky like giant metal beasts. Their weapons fired again and again, turning the crystal gardens into melted pools of light. Yella's people had built their cities from living crystal that grew toward the sun. Now those same crystals burned and screamed as they died. "Commander," her aide whispered behind her. His voice shook with fear. "The eastern cities are gone. The western settlements have stopped answering our calls." Yella closed her large silver eyes. The Villani had never known war. They were a gentle people who grew their food from sunlight and built their homes from singing stone. Their bodies were thin and light, perfect for their peaceful world but useless against the brutal Korthak warriors. She turned to look at her small crew. Only 12 Villani remained on the station. The rest had fled or died when the attack began 3 days ago. These brave few had stayed to help coordinate the evacuation of their people. But there was nowhere left to run. "How many ships escaped?" Yella asked. Her communications officer, a young male named Ven, checked his screens with trembling fingers. "Maybe 50 civilian transports. They jumped to the outer system before the Korthak could catch them." 50 ships out of thousands. Yella felt her heart break a little more. The Villani population had been nearly 1 billion souls. Now perhaps a few thousand would survive to remember their people's songs. "Commander," Ven said suddenly, "the Korthak are sending a message." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to show a massive creature with thick black armor covering its body. Sharp spikes grew from its shoulders and arms. Its face was a nightmare of teeth and small red eyes. When it spoke, its voice was like rocks grinding together. "Villani insects," the Korthak commander said. "I am war leader Vex of the Korthak Dominion. Your pathetic defense is over. Send down your surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Yella stepped forward. Her slim form looked tiny compared to the brutal alien on the screen. "We are a peaceful people. We have done nothing to harm you. Why do you destroy us?" War leader Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Because you exist in space that belongs to the Dominion. Because your weakness disgusts us. Because we can." His red eyes gleamed. "You have 1 hour to surrender. Then we will come to your station and show you how the Dominion treats insects." The screen went dark. Yella stood in silence for a long moment. Around her, the remaining crew members made soft humming sounds of grief. It was how her people cried, with harmony instead of tears. "Commander," Ven said quietly, "what do we do?" Yella looked around the command center. Banks of communication equipment lined the walls. The Villani had always been good at talking to other species. They had built this station to reach across the galaxy with messages of peace and friendship. Most aliens found the Villani boring but harmless. "How powerful is our main transmitter?" she asked. Ven looked confused. "Very powerful, Commander. It can reach most of the galaxy if we boost the signal. But who would we call? The Galactic Council refuses to interfere in Dominion expansion. They said it would be too dangerous." "Not the Council," Yella said. She moved to the main communications panel and began entering commands. "Everyone, anyone, all the species in the galaxy who might still have honor." Her fingers moved across the crystal controls. The transmitter began to hum with building power. She had never used it at full strength before. The energy requirements were enormous, and it would probably burn out the entire system after one message. "Commander, what are you doing?" asked her aide. "I am going to tell the galaxy that we existed," Yella said. "That we were here, and we tried to be good. Maybe someone will remember us. Maybe someone will care." The transmitter reached full power. Warning lights flashed as the system prepared to send a signal stronger than anything the Villani had ever broadcast. Yella opened channels on every frequency. Her people knew. "This is Commander Yella of the Villani people," she said into the microphone. Her voice was calm and clear. "We are broadcasting from our homeworld of Kethara in the outer spiral. Our world is dying. The Korthak Dominion is destroying. Everything we have built. Our cities burn, our people flee. We never harmed anyone. We shared our music and our art with any species who would listen. We grew gardens among the stars and sang to welcome each new day. We believed the galaxy was full of friends we had not yet met. In a few hours, there will be no more Volani. The Korthak will finish their work, and our songs will be silent forever. If anyone receives this message, please remember that we tried to be worthy of the stars. We tried to make the galaxy a little more beautiful. This is our last transmission. Thank you for listening. May your people know peace that we could not find. Yella ended the message and set it to repeat. The signal raced away from Cathara faster than light, carrying her words to 1,000 worlds. Most species would ignore it or file it away as another minor tragedy in a violent galaxy. But 3 months away, on a blue world called Earth, the message reached the Terran Defense Command. Admiral Do-Yun sat in his command chair, listening to the alien woman's gentle voice as she described her people's death. Beside him, Captain Nari pulled up files on the Volani. Peaceful herbivores, she reported. No military capability. They make music and grow crystal gardens. They have never bothered anyone. Do-Yun stared at the holographic star map. Cathara was far from Earth, in a dangerous part of the galaxy. The logical thing would be to file the message and forget about it. Let the politicians handle diplomatic protests. But Admiral Do-Yun had not survived 30 years of military service by ignoring his instincts. And his instincts told him that sometimes, someone had to stand up to bullies. "Ma'am," Captain Nari said carefully. "The Galactic Council specifically forbids military intervention in Dominion territory." "The Galactic Council," Do-Yun replied, "can file a complaint after we get back." He stood up and straightened his uniform. "Signal all available ships, we are going to rescue some civilians." Far away on dying Cathara, Commander Yella watched the last of her world's lights go out. She did not know that her message had been heard. She did not know that help was coming. But somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, the ships of humanity were already moving. Admiral Do-Yun stood on the observation deck of the Soul's Pride and watched his fleet gather above Earth. 57 ships hung in the black space around their home planet. They were not the prettiest ships in the galaxy, but they were the most dangerous. Human ships looked different from other species' vessels. Where aliens built smooth, elegant craft for exploration and trade, humans built weapons that happened to fly through space. The Soul's Pride was a massive rectangle of gray metal covered in gun turrets and missile pods. Thick armor plating protected every surface. It looked exactly like what it was, a machine built for war. Captain Nari joined him at the window. "All ships report ready, Admiral. The fleet is loaded and supplied for extended operations." "Good." Do-Yun watched a squadron of destroyers take formation near the flagship. "What do we know about Korthak military doctrine?" "They prefer overwhelming force," Nari replied, reading from her tablet. "Standard tactic is to surround a target system and bombard it until resistance stops. They have not fought a serious space battle in over 50 years. Most species surrender when they arrive. Most species are not human." Do-Yun turned away from the window. "Brief me on our capabilities." They walked to the main briefing room where the senior officers waited. The room was functional and plain, with metal walls and simple chairs. No decorations or comfort features, just the necessities for planning war. Commander Kyung-Soo, the fleet's tactical officer, activated the holographic display. "We have 42 combat ships and 15 support vessels. The Korthak fleet at Cathara numbers approximately 120 ships according to our analysis of the distress signal. Outnumbered 2-1, observed Captain Minho of the battle cruiser Busan Thunder. Good odds for humans." Some of the other captains smiled grimly. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy for being crazy enough to attack larger forces. It came from being the only species that had evolved on a planet trying to kill them every day. Do-Yun studied the tactical projection. "What about ground forces?" Lieutenant Tae-ho stepped forward. He was young for a Marine officer, but his record showed 3 successful boarding actions against pirate vessels. We have 2,000 Marines ready for deployment, sir. Full combat gear and boarding pods. The Korthak won't expect boarding actions, Nari added. Most species consider ship-to-ship combat too dangerous. They fight at long range with energy weapons. Then we will educate them about human tactics. Du Yun looked around the room at his officers. They were good people, volunteers all. Earth's military was entirely volunteer because humans who wanted to fight were more dangerous than those forced to fight. Dr. Hai Wan, the fleet's chief medical officer and xenobiologist, raised her hand. Admiral, I should point out that we know very little about Villani physiology. My medical teams may not be able to help injured survivors. We will figure it out when we get there, Doctor. Your people are the best in the fleet. Do Yun activated the main display. Here is our situation. The Villani are dying while we talk. Every hour we delay means more civilians dead, so we are going to cross 3 months of space in 3 weeks. The room fell silent. 3 weeks was an incredibly fast transit time for that distance. It would mean pushing their engines past safe limits and arriving with their ships stressed and their crews exhausted. Sir, Captain Minho said carefully, that kind of burn rate will leave us with minimal fuel reserves when we arrive. Then we better win quickly. Do Yun's expression was hard. The Korthak have been expanding for decades while the Galactic Council writes complaint letters. They think they can murder civilians because nobody will stop them. Today they learned different. Commander Kyung-soo pulled up intelligence reports. The Korthak are heavy gravity adapted, thick armor plating, natural weapons, and a warrior culture that glorifies violence. They are physically stronger than humans and better armored. But they have never fought humans, Lieutenant Teho added. They do not know about our tactics or our equipment. What advantages do we have? Do Yun asked. Speed, Nari replied immediately. Our ships are faster and more maneuverable than Korthak vessels. We also have superior weapons range and targeting systems. Experience, added Captain Minho. Human military doctrine is based on fighting other humans. We are the most dangerous species we know, so our tactics assume intelligent, adaptable enemies. Boarding capability, Lieutenant Teho said. Human Marines are trained for close combat in hostile environments. Most alien species find the idea of fighting inside a spaceship insane. Du Yun nodded. Dr. Hayawan, what can you tell us about Korthak psychology? The doctor consulted her files. They are pack hunters with a rigid hierarchy. They respect strength and despise weakness. Their culture values direct confrontation and considers retreat deeply shameful. So they will fight to the death instead of running. Most likely, yes. Good. That means we do not have to chase them across the galaxy. Do Yun stood up. People, we are about to do something that will probably start a war. The Galactic Council will condemn us. Other species will call us violent barbarians. The Korthak Dominion will demand our heads. He looked around the room at his officers. But right now there are innocent civilians dying while their government fails to protect them. There are children crying for parents who will never come home. There are artists and teachers and gardeners being murdered for the crime of existing. The Sea Admiral's voice grew cold. We are going to stop that. We are going to save as many Villani as we can, and we are going to teach the Korthak that some species bite back. Any questions? Captain Nari raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir? Korthak military vessels are fair targets. Destroy them all. Take prisoners if they surrender, but do not risk human lives to capture ships. Do Yun paused. The Villani are non-combatants. Protect them at all costs. What about Korthak ground forces? Lieutenant Teho asked. If they are killing civilians, they are enemy combatants. Deal with them accordingly. The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone understood what the Admiral meant. This would not be a clean diplomatic mission. This would be war, raw and bloody. Sir, Dr. Haiwan said quietly, when word of this gets out, every species in the galaxy will be watching. What we do at Cathara will define how the galaxy sees humanity for generations. Du Yun smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Then let us make sure they understand something important, Doctor. Let them know that humans protect the innocent, and let them know what happens to anyone who hurts civilians while we are watching. He activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Do Yun. In 30 minutes we jump for Cathara. We are going to save a species from extinction and remind the galaxy what honor looks like. Prepare for hyperspace. As the human fleet prepared to depart, messages flashed between the ships. Crews checked weapons and equipment one final time. Marines sealed themselves into boarding pods. Medical teams prepared emergency aid stations. None of them had ever seen a Villani. None of them had any connection to the dying species 3 months away. But they were human, and humans protected those who could not protect themselves. The Soul's Pride engaged its hyperdrive, and 56 other ships followed it into the dark between stars. Behind them, Earth spun peacefully in space, unaware that its children were about to change the galaxy forever. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system, like hunters emerging from tall grass. Their ships ran dark and silent, using the cold space between planets to hide their approach. Admiral Do Yun stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and felt his blood turn to ice at what he saw. Cathara burned. The beautiful world that had sent its final message 3 weeks ago was now a sphere of orange fire. Massive Korthak ships hung in orbit like vultures, their weapons firing continuously at the surface below. Where cities had once grown from living crystal, now only melted glass remained. Tactical report, Do Yun ordered quietly. Captain Nari worked at her station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. 123 enemy vessels in the system. Most are concentrated around the planet. They appear to be conducting systematic bombardment of all population centers. Any civilian ships? Negative. If any Villani escaped, they are not in this system. Commander Kyung-soo studied the enemy formations. Admiral, the Korthak fleet is spread out for maximum bombardment efficiency. They are not maintaining defensive positions. They are not expecting a fight, Do Yun realized. The enemy ships moved slowly and predictably, focused entirely on the destruction below. They had been killing helpless civilians for weeks and had grown careless. Sir, the communications officer reported, we are receiving automated distress. Signals from the planet's surface very weak, but some Villani appear to be alive down there. Do Yun felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. The emotion had no name in most alien languages, but humans knew it well. It was the feeling that came when someone hurt your pack. It was the reason humans had conquered their death world instead of being conquered by it. All ships, he broadcast, on the fleet channel. This is Admiral Do Yun. You see what I see? These animals have been murdering civilians for sport while we traveled here. That ends now. He activated the tactical display. We are going to show the Korthak why you do not hunt in predator territory. Fleet will divide into hunting packs. Each pack takes a section of the enemy fleet. No Korthak ship leaves this system alive. The human fleet split apart like a pack of wolves surrounding prey. 12 destroyers led by Captain Minho moved to block the system's hyperspace exit points. 20 frigates under Commander Jae-sun swept wide to attack the enemy rear guard. The main battle group centered on the Soul's Pride prepared for a direct assault on the largest Korthak ships. On the planet's surface, Commander Yella crouched in the ruins of her command center with the last 30 Villani on their homeworld. Above them, twisted metal and broken crystal blocked most of the burning sky. Her people had been hiding in the underground shelter for 2 weeks, listening to their world die. Commander, whispered Ven, her communications officer. I am detecting new ships in orbit. Unknown configuration, but they are moving into attack formation against the Dominion fleet. Yella felt a flutter of hope in her chest. How many ships? Difficult to tell. At least 50. They are very quiet. Our sensors can barely detect them. Outside, their shelter. The sound of Korthak ground forces grew closer. The alien warriors moved through the ruins like hunting beasts, searching for Villani survivors to kill. Yella could hear their harsh voices calling to each other as they overturned debris. High above the planet, the first human missiles found their targets. The Korthak had never faced kinetic weapons fired at near light speed. Their energy shields, designed to stop plasma bolts and laser beams, did nothing against solid metal moving at tremendous velocity. The first Korthak destroyer simply disappeared in a flash of vaporized metal. War leader Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the boss, Bone Crusher, and watched in shock as 3 more of his ships died in seconds. "What is attacking us?" he roared. "Unknown vessels, Lord," his tactical officer replied. "They appear to be using primitive kinetic weapons, but at velocities we have never seen." Primitive. Vex stared at his display as another cruiser exploded. "Nothing primitive about those weapons. Get me visual contact with these attackers." The main screen flickered to show sleek gray ships emerging from the darkness. They moved with predatory grace, their weapon systems tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Even as Vex watched, more missiles streaked toward his fleet. "Communications," Vex ordered. "Contact the lead ship." A moment later, an alien face appeared on his screen. The creature was tall and lean with short dark hair and cold brown eyes. Its skin was pale compared to Korthak hide, and it had no natural armor or weapons. It looked weak and fragile. "Unknown fleet," Vex transmitted. "You are interfering with Dominion operations. Identify yourselves and withdraw immediately or face annihilation." The alien's expression did not change. When it spoke, its voice was calm and precise. "This is Admiral Do Yun of the Terran Defense Force. You have 60 seconds to cease fire on the planet and surrender your vessels. After that, we stop being polite." Vex felt his mandibles clack in amusement. This soft-looking alien dared to threaten the Dominion? "You face the might of war leader Vex and 100 ships of the Korthak fleet. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." 59 seconds, the human replied. Vex cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their flagship. Show these insects the power of the Dominion." The Bone Crusher fired its main plasma cannons at the Soul's Pride. The energy bolt struck human shields and armor, and barely left scorch marks. Vex stared in disbelief. His ship's weapons could crack a planet's crust, but they seemed to tickle this alien vessel. "Lord," his tactical officer reported, "enemy ships are using some kind of enhanced armor. Our weapons are having minimal effect." "Impossible. Increase power to all weapons." But even as the Korthak fleet focused its fire on the human ships, more kinetic rounds struck their vessels. Human weapons punched through Korthak armor like it was paper. The aliens had built their ships to fight other energy-based civilizations, not to stop solid projectiles moving at impossible speeds. Lieutenant Teho felt his boarding pod shake as it launched from the Soul's Pride toward a Korthak heavy cruiser. Around him, 20 Marines checked their weapons one final time. They wore powered armor that made them look like metal giants, and their faces were hidden behind intimidating helmets. "Remember," Teho told his squad over the communication system, "we know nothing about Korthak ship layouts or tactics. Assume every corner hides an ambush. Assume every door is trapped. Assume they are tougher and meaner than they look." "Sir," Sergeant Wansik replied, "are we taking prisoners? If they surrender, yes. If they fight, no." The boarding pod struck the Korthak ship's hull and deployed its cutting charges. The shaped explosives tore a hole in the enemy vessel large enough for the Marines to pour through. Teho led the way into the alien ship, his rifle ready. The first Korthak warrior he met was a massive creature covered in thick black armor. It carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and an energy projector. When it saw the human Marines, it roared a challenge and charged forward. Teho shot it 3 times in the chest with armor-piercing rounds. The alien stumbled but did not fall. Its natural armor was incredibly thick. But Teho had not survived Marine training by giving up when enemies proved tough. He switched his rifle to full automatic and emptied the entire magazine into the creature's center mass. The Korthak warrior finally collapsed, its armor cracked and leaking dark fluid. "Tough," Sergeant Wansik observed. "But not tough enough," Teho replied, reloading his weapon. "Keep moving. We have a ship to capture." Back on the planet's surface, Commander Yella heard new sounds in the sky above. The constant thunder of Korthak bombardment had stopped. Instead, she heard different explosions, sharper, more violent. Through cracks in their shelter, she could see flashes of light as ships died in orbit. "Ven," she whispered, "what is happening?" "Up there?" Her communications officer worked frantically with his damaged equipment. "The unknown ships are attacking the Korthak fleet. They are winning, Commander. The Dominion vessels are being destroyed faster than they can respond." For the first time in weeks, Yella felt hope stir in her heart. Someone had come. Someone had heard their final message and cared enough to cross the galaxy. She did not know who these strangers were, but they were fighting to save her people. Above them all, Admiral Do Yun watched his fleet tear through the Korthak formation like wolves among sheep. "All units, maintain formation. Do not let any enemy ships escape," to carry word back to the Dominion. The hunt had begun and the Deathworlders were winning. The battle for Cathara became a lesson in human warfare that the galaxy would never forget. While the Korthak fleet scrambled to respond to an enemy they had never imagined, human ships moved through space like hunting predators, each one knowing exactly where to strike. Lieutenant Tae-ho and his Marines fought their way through the corridors of the Korthak heavy cruiser. The ship's interior was dark and filled with sharp metal edges, built by and for a species that enjoyed violence. Every surface had spikes or blades, and the air smelled of metal and blood. "Contact front," Sergeant Wansik called out as more Korthak warriors appeared around a corner. These aliens were even larger than the first one, their black armor decorated, with bone trophies from previous battles. They carried weapons that fired bolts of crackling energy. The first energy bolt struck Tae-ho's armor and left a glowing mark on the metal. The second one hit Sergeant Min-jun and knocked him backward. But human-powered armor was designed to operate in the vacuum of space and the heart of a nuclear explosion. Alien energy weapons were painful, but not deadly. "Suppressing fire," Tae-ho ordered. His squad opened up with their rifles, filling the corridor with armor-piercing rounds. The Korthak warriors were tough, but even their natural armor could not stop focused human gunfire. But what really shocked the aliens was what happened next. Instead of maintaining distance like every other species in the galaxy, the humans charged forward into close combat. Tae-ho drew his combat knife, a 30-centimeter blade of hardened steel, and closed with the nearest Korthak. The alien warrior swung its energy sword at the human's head. Tae-ho ducked under the blow and drove his knife between the creature's armor plates. Black blood sprayed across the corridor walls. "Impossible," the dying Korthak gasped in its own language. "Nothing fights like this. Nothing comes close when it can stay far." Tae-ho did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Fear. The Korthak were learning that humans fought differently than anyone else in the galaxy. On the bridge of the Soul's Pride, Admiral Do Yun coordinated the fleet battle with cold precision. His ships moved in coordinated groups, each one supporting the others. When Korthak vessels tried to focus fire on a single human ship, two others would appear from unexpected angles to destroy the attackers. "Admiral," Captain Nari reported, "the enemy flagship is attempting to retreat toward the hyperspace exit point." "Captain Minho," Do Yun transmitted to the destroyer squadron, "do not let War Leader Vex escape." "Understood, Admiral. Moving to intercept." The Busan Thunder and 3 other destroyers appeared in front of the fleeing Korthak flagship, like wolves cutting off a running deer. Their missile batteries opened fire simultaneously, sending dozens of kinetic rounds toward the massive enemy vessel. On the bridge of the Bone Crusher, War Leader Vex watched his fleet die around him. These humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. Their ships were fast and maneuverable, but they also carried impossible amounts of armor and firepower. Their weapons punched through Korthak hulls like they were made of paper. "Lord," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 60% of the fleet. The remaining ships are scattered and unable to coordinate." "How?" Vex demanded. "They are only 50 ships against our 120. "Lord, I do not think these humans count ships the same way we do. Each of their vessels fights like it is worth 3 of ours." Vex stared at the tactical display. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all controlled by a single mind. When one was damaged, others immediately moved to protect it. When they attacked, they did so with overwhelming force concentrated on a single target. Communications, he ordered. Contact the human admiral. I will negotiate terms. But when Admiral Do-yun's face appeared on the screen, his expression was as cold as space itself. War Leader Vex, ready to surrender? I am prepared to discuss terms, Vex replied. The Dominion is willing to withdraw from this system in exchange for safe passage. No. The simple word hit Vex like a physical blow. What do you mean, no? I mean, you have been murdering civilians for weeks. You turned a peaceful world into a graveyard. You do not get to negotiate your way out of that. You do not understand, Vex said desperately. The Dominion is vast. We control 300 worlds. If you destroy this fleet, others will come. Hundreds of fleets will come. Do-yun's expression did not change. Then we will destroy them too. The transmission ended. A few seconds later, kinetic rounds from the destroyer squadron struck the Bone Crusher's engines. The massive ship shuddered and began to drift helplessly in space. On the planet's surface, Commander Yella heard the sound of human dropships landing near her shelter. Through the cracks in the debris above, she could see strange angular vessels setting down among the ruins of her city. Ramps opened, and figures in metal armor began moving through the wreckage. Are they friends or enemies? Whispered one of her surviving crew members. I do not know, Yella admitted. But they are fighting the Korthak. That makes them better than what we had. A new sound made them all freeze. The harsh voices of Korthak ground troops, very close to their hiding place. The alien warriors had found their shelter. Villani insects, a Korthak voice called in accented standard. We know you are in there. Come out and we will make your deaths quick. Heavy footsteps moved closer to the shelter entrance. Yella could hear the aliens moving debris trying to dig down to where her people hid. In a few minutes they would break through. Then a new voice spoke. Not Korthak, but something else. It said words in a language Yella did not recognize, but the tone was unmistakably commanding. The Korthak voices answered angrily. Suddenly the shelter shook as explosions erupted above them. Gunfire echoed through the ruins. Not the crackling, energy weapons of the Korthak, but the sharp crack of projectile rifles. Alien voices screamed in pain and rage. The battle lasted only a few minutes. Then silence fell over the ruins. Hello? A new voice called in heavily accented standard. Villani people, we are here to help. We are humans. Yella looked at her surviving crew members. They were all thinking the same thing. Humans were the species the galaxy called Deathworlders. Stories said they were violent predators who came from a world of endless war. But right now, they were the only hope her people had. We are here, she called back. We are trapped under the debris. Stand back from the entrance, the human voice replied. We will dig you out. The sound of heavy machinery filled the air. Within minutes, bright lights shone down into the shelter as human soldiers cleared away the wreckage. The first figure Yella saw was a giant in metal armor, its face hidden behind a reflective helmet. The human removed its helmet, revealing a young face with kind eyes. My name is Dr. He-won, the figure said. Yella realized with surprise that this fearsome armored warrior was actually a female. I am a doctor. Are any of your people injured? Several, Yella replied. But we do not know if human medicine can help Villani. We will figure it out, Dr. He-won said confidently. That is what doctors do. More humans appeared at the shelter entrance, their armor making them look like metal giants. But when they spoke, their voices were gentle. When they helped injured Villani to the surface, their touch was careful and kind. Above them all, the last Korthak ships died in flashes of light. Admiral Do-yun had kept his promise. The slaughter was over. Why did you come? Commander Yella asked Dr. He-won as human medics treated her wounded people. We are strangers to you. Why risk your lives for us? The human doctor looked up at the burning sky, where the wreckage of the Korthak fleet was slowly falling toward the planet. Because someone had to, she said simply. Your message reached us, and we had the power to help. That made it our responsibility. Yella did not fully understand the concept. In the wider galaxy, species helped their own and ignored the suffering of others. But as she watched human soldiers gently carry injured Villani to safety, she began to understand why the galaxy feared these Deathworlders. They were dangerous not just because they were strong, but because they cared about strangers. The battle for Cathara ended with the complete destruction of the Korthak fleet. Not a single enemy ship escaped to carry word back to the Dominion. War Leader Vex's flagship, the Bone Crusher, burned in the planet's atmosphere after Lieutenant Taeho's Marines had systematically destroyed every critical system on board. Admiral Do-Yun stood in the ruins of the Villani capital city, watching his engineers set up temporary shelters for the survivors. The crystal towers that had once sung in the wind were now melted glass, but human construction equipment was already clearing space for emergency housing. Commander Yella approached him carefully. The human admiral was much taller than any Villani, and his military uniform made him look intimidating. But when he turned to face her, his eyes were kind. Commander, he said, speaking through a translation device. How many of your people survived? Fewer than 1,000, Yella replied sadly. Out of nearly 1 billion souls. She looked around, at the devastated city. We had no weapons, no way to fight back. We thought the galaxy was peaceful. The galaxy is what we make it, Do-Yun said quietly. Your people chose to make it more beautiful. The Korthak chose to make it more violent. We chose to stop them. Dr. Haiwan joined them, her medical tablet in hand. Admiral, I have good news. Villani physiology is more adaptable than we thought. With some modifications to our medical equipment, we can treat their injuries effectively. What do they need to survive? Sunlight, clean water, and soil with specific mineral content for their photosynthetic plants. We can provide all of that. The doctor looked around at the destruction. But it will take years to rebuild their civilization. Then we will give them years, Do-Yun decided. Captain Nari, establish a permanent garrison in this system. 3 ships minimum, rotating crews every 6 months. Captain Nari, who had been coordinating the evacuation of Villani survivors, looked up in surprise. Sir, that will require approval from Earth Command, and the Galactic Council will protest our military presence in this sector. The Galactic Council had 50 years to protect the Villani, Do-Yun replied coldly. They chose to write complaint letters instead. As for Earth Command, they sent us here to rescue civilians. Protecting them afterward is part of the same mission. Lieutenant Taeho approached with his combat report. His powered armor was scratched and dented from the boarding action, but his face was satisfied. Admiral, we captured several Korthak, officers alive. Their ship records contain navigation data for the entire Dominion fleet structure. What did you learn? The Dominion is larger than we thought. Over 300 worlds under their control, and they have conquered or destroyed 47 different species in the last century. Taeho's expression darkened. Sir, they keep detailed records of their conquests. What they did to the Villani, they have done to dozens of other peaceful species. Do-Yun felt that cold anger settle in his chest again. Where is their main fleet, divided among their conquered territories? The largest concentration is at their capital world of Korth Prime, maybe 200 ships. Only 200? Captain Nari asked. They have never needed more, Lieutenant. Taeho explained. Most species surrender when they arrive. The few that fight back are usually destroyed quickly. Commander Yella listened to this conversation with growing amazement. These humans were talking about fighting the entire Korthak Dominion as if it were a normal military operation. The Dominion controlled hundreds of worlds and had millions of warriors. How could 50 human ships challenge such a massive empire? Admiral, she said hesitantly, surely you cannot fight the entire Dominion. When they learn what happened here, they will send overwhelming force against your world. Do-Yun looked at her with what might have been amusement. Commander, the Korthak Dominion has been expanding for generations because nobody stood up to them. Every species they encountered either surrendered immediately or was destroyed quickly. They have never fought anyone who could fight back effectively. But their numbers. Numbers matter, Captain Nari agreed. But tactics, training, and technology matter more. The Korthak build their strategy around intimidating peaceful species. They have no experience fighting dedicated warriors. Dr. Hai Wan was checking her communication tablet. Admiral, I am receiving reports from our other ships. The rescue teams have found Villani survivors in 7 other locations across the planet. Total count is now 1,100 individuals. Any children? About 200, mostly young ones, who were in deep shelters when the bombardment began. Du-Yun felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. A species could survive and rebuild if it had children. Priority goes to evacuating the children to safety. How long until we can establish a secure base on the planet? 3 days for basic facilities, reported Commander Kyung-soo, who had been coordinating the construction efforts. 2 weeks for a full military base with defensive systems. Do it. Du-Yun turned back to Commander Yella. Your people need time to heal and rebuild. My people will make sure you have that time. As the human ships took up patrol positions around Cathara, word of the battle spread through the galaxy on subspace communication networks. The news was impossible to believe at first. 50 human ships had destroyed a Korthak fleet of over 100 vessels without losing a single ship. On dozens of worlds, species that had written off the Villani as extinct received incredible news. The Deathworlders had come when no one else would. In the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, the news caused chaos. Ambassador Trell of the Centauri Republic stood at the speaking podium, his scaled face flushed with anger. The humans have violated every principle of galactic law, he declared. They attacked Dominion forces without authorization from this council. They have established a military presence in contested space. This aggression cannot be tolerated. Ambassador Chen of the Sol Federation stood to respond. She was a small, human woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice carried across the vast chamber. Honored delegates, the Galactic Council had decades to address Korthak expansion. You chose to issue warnings and file protests while innocent species died. Humanity chose to act. The humans are warmongers, Ambassador Trell shot back. This incident proves they cannot be trusted with military power. No, Ambassador Chen replied calmly. This incident proves that sometimes military power is necessary to protect the innocent. The Villani are alive today because humans were willing to risk their lives for strangers. The debate raged for hours, but in the end, the council could do nothing. The human fleet was already in place around Cathara, and removing them would require force that none of the council species possessed. Deep in Dominion space, High War Leader Krex received the first reports of the disaster at Cathara. His massive form sat on a throne made from the bones of conquered enemies, and his red eyes glowed with rage as he read the details. Impossible, he growled. 50 ships cannot destroy a fleet of over 100. The reports must be wrong. Lord, his aide said carefully, we have confirmed the loss of all vessels in the Cathara fleet. No survivors have returned. Then send a larger fleet, 500 ships. Destroy these humans and finish burning the Villani world. Lord, we do not know the location of the human homeworld. The attack fleet came from empty space and left no trace of their origin. Krex's claws scraped against his bone throne. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he faced an enemy he could not locate or understand. These humans had appeared from nowhere, destroyed his fleet, and vanished back into the darkness. But the Dominion would find them, and when they did, Krex would show the galaxy what happened to species that dared to challenge Korthak supremacy. On Cathara, Admiral Do-Yun stood in the command center of the new human base, watching the first Villani children play in the temporary gardens his engineers had constructed. Commander Yella worked beside Dr. Haiwan, planning the reconstruction of her people's civilization. Admiral, Captain Nari reported, long-range sensors detect no enemy ships in the surrounding systems. The area appears secure. For now, Do-Yun replied. But the Dominion will return. When they do, we will be ready. Commander Yella approached him with a crystal tablet containing a message her people had prepared. Admiral, the surviving Villani have voted to send a message to Earth. We want your people to know how grateful we are. Duyun read the message through his translation device. It was written in the flowing script of the Villani language, but the meaning was clear. Thank you for proving that the galaxy still has heroes. We are not heroes, Commander, Duyun said quietly. We are just the ones who showed up. But as the human ships continued their patrol of the Cathara system, the message was already spreading across the galaxy. Species that had hidden from Korthak expansion began to whisper about the Deathworlders who fought for strangers. Enslaved peoples in Dominion territory heard rumors of liberation. The galaxy was changing. The age of unchallenged conquest was ending. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, the ships of humanity waited for the next call for help.